impressed accounts, and then submit record of the charges to the developers so that it's approved. Each impressed account is funded according to the scope of work and the developer that is responsible for it. So we're able to monitor and track how it is that we are expending, the resources per each impressed account.
Can you just tell me who are the entities that contribute to the impressed account? Is that something you could tell me now?
Yeah. So in the early stages of the project, it was 100% Forest City, and at the time, Forest City was the entity that was part of the project development, the arena operations as well. And as there have been changes to the site, there's been a separate impressed account related to any Barclays Center related charges. And then when the joint venture was established, there was a joint venture impressed account associated with the Greenland Forest City Partners. And as we'll talk about later, there are new entities affiliated with the project, and there will be impressed accounts established respectively for those sites.
Got it. Thanks.
Just a question, is the occupancy expense, is that an actual?
Sure. I apologize, I missed your question, but Marion just reminded me to note that we approve the funds that go out of the impressed account. We were able to pay the required invoices and the expenses. We don't have to wait for developer approval before we can make sure that those bills are paid. Because again, this is for contracts that are established with ESD and our consultants.
Question: the occupancy charge, is that a payment to the developer for use of an office, or is that something allocated by ESD?
That's something allocated by ESD.
ESD to this entity at
right.
the cost of.
Yeah, none of the funds that are noted in this budget would be ESD paying to the developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is our procedure, if we have one, for amending the budget in the course of a fiscal year? The reason I ask about this is because I think there's been an expectation for several years that the developer would come forward looking for a project change to relocate some density around the project, and in that event, I suspect that AYCDC might benefit from some expert opinion and analysis that would require some budget. Is there a way for us to amend the budget during the course of the fiscal year if that becomes desirable?
Marion, can you?
So the way that would happen is we already have contracts with other environmental firms, and those contracts, we'd work through those contracts if we wanted to add on additional consultants, or we can work through our legal firms and work through those contracts, opposed to increasing this budget or opposed to entering into new agreements with new RFPs. We would work through the current contracts to do that.
I can appreciate that, and I can see how that would be preferable, but since we might not be able to anticipate the scope of what those services might be, or can we be certain that those contracts would cover the scope of what the board might desire?
The current contracts we have with our we have multiple law firms to do different things. We have a condemnation law firm, we have a project law firm, we have an environmental law firm. If we needed to look at any aspect of modifying the GPP, those three firms could hire whatever additional consultants we needed as one avenue of doing this. If we go the avenue that you raised or hinted at or insinuated, we would have to go through a whole procurement. I don't think that would be could occur quickly enough for us to accomplish what you wanted. So I think the contracts we currently have in place would be able to meet the needs.
Okay. And just to follow up on that, so there's no question that AYCDC as an entity would be a recognized client that could avail of those contracts if needed with the outside consultants.
If there was a need for additional information and we did not have those services already available, of course.
Okay.
Just to follow on that, how do we kind of continue the dialogue on the recommendation on its face? Just the notion of
how to modify?
Well, for this specific purpose that was recommended. I mean, it's an ongoing kind of fluid conversation. So we meet once a year. So I mean, how do we do that?
So as you know, we ought to meet quarterly.
Right.
But quorums are just difficult to get. But we'll discuss that later. But the answer to your question is, if you had a need or to amend the budget, we would amend the budget through our regular meeting process, and we would come forward and make a recommendation to amend the budget for X purpose. I mean, from a mechanical perspective, that's what I'm answering.
Okay. Got it, yeah.
And I suspect such a recommendation could also be made by the board.
The board would act through us, would be the wisest way of doing that. And the reason I say that is not because you aren't wise. I say that from the standpoint of there's a procurement element. And I think it's wiser for us. It's not right. It's just the right way to handle this is to go through the entire process, go through staff, let us present it, and go from there. Because, you know, there may be one way that you're thinking, but there may be a government way of accomplishing what you're thinking. And since we're a government entity, we would have to do it the government way, what you're doing.
Any other follow-up questions before I open it up to public comments from the directors? No? Any comments from the public?
Actually, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes, I do.
sorry.
Just within the arc of the last half decade, as you mentioned, have you ever underspent the budget that was allocated?
She better not.
I would like to overspend the budget.
Sure.
But no, we haven't, because part of what's represented here is that we're able to use the staff cost that's negotiated with the developer to cover in-house ESD staff cost as well. So we hardly find ourselves in a position that we underspend. I understand that we've only met once this past year, but there's still ongoing, staff cost and staff needs that part of this budget covers, including my salary and also that of Greg Lynch, who's our full-time on-site monitor at Atlantic Yards.
Okay.
And then, Cy,
Yeah.
just to go more into the weeds, since your questions are just begging me to just go into this.
Go.
But I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful to give you context. Toby, I think, has done a tremendous job, and I think all of you would agree that she is very responsive to you and answering your questions accurately, clearly, and timely. But there also are a number of other people, to answer your question why we will never underspend the budget. There are a number of people from legal with Laura, from environmental with Rachel, with other project folks who are always on the project. And the way many of our business professional services here at ESD operate, they code their time and allocate their time
So you
to
draw
the
that down.
various
Yeah.
projects.
Okay.
So that's why we would never
Yeah.
underspend the budget.
Yeah.
And we will never overspend the budget because they won't
can't.
want it.
Okay, so at this point, I want to open up for comments related to this agenda item from the public. Is there anyone? Okay, hearing none. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did anyone oppose? I think we had all eyes on that. Thank you. The motion carries. Now I'd like to call on Marion to provide us with the president's report. This item is being presented for your information only, and no vote will be required. Are you using this? Do I need to move out of the way? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a while. And not only has it been a while, I might be rusty on how to talk to you all about this. But the reality is I do appreciate, well, let me just start from the long version of my speech. One, Happy New Year to all of you. It's been good to work with you over the last several years. We do welcome Gib, welcoming Gib is kind of like welcoming the guy who's been at family dinner for the last 20 years. Gib has been on this project in the community and has been a very integral part of shaping this project. So it's really good to have someone to welcome who is a partner and who understands it and has been very constructive in moving this project forward. So Gib, we do welcome you to the board. And we do want to thank Tamara, who has always stepped in and willingly served as acting chair. But let me just say, my report has two sections, and then we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the developer, because I think those are the pieces of this report that really matter most. First part of it is I'm going to cover the project, where we've been, review, do a little catch up from last year, and then talk about our community relations and our quality of life. And then Scott Solis, who represents Greenland for our city partners, who will then give the update of the overall where we're going on the project. Last time we met, and as you know, it's been very difficult to get a quorum, and I do appreciate you making time. I know that Debbie Royce, who's But we also want to congratulate Debbie. She's been promoted to corporate secretary of the agency. She's worked very hard, and I know she just stepped out. She just stepped out?
Yes.
All right,
Mary,
we'll
you
give her
got
a
to get
shout
that.
out again.
Thank you.
But we do realize that she sends out polling requests from you frequently. And what has happened, as many of you know, you will say you can, and then one person drops out for business reasons, which we all understand. And the reason we have such a good board is we have a very active board, a very knowledgeable board who works hard. So I do thank you, and I'm sorry that we've not been able to really meet regularly. Back to my original point, we want to congratulate Debbie Royce, who's been named Corporate Secretary of ESD. And she has worked diligently in her role prior to that, and she obviously has earned the promotion, so congratulations to Debbie. In terms of where we've been, and the last time we've met, since the last time we met, we've renewed our budgets. We've also extended 2 contracts. One of the contracts was with HDR, and the other one was STV. STV is our owner's rep. HDR is our environmental monitor. Both of those contracts were extended. One of the concerns that was raised 2 years ago was the ability to look at the scope of the work related to Site 5 and modification. Obviously, we have not come to you about modifying the GPP regarding Site 5. Where we are with that is not in a place where we are prepared to do that, so there was no need to really make that change, and so the contracts were extended. Last time we met, the joint venture represented Forest City and Greenland. Greenland was at 70% of the project. Forest City was at 30%. So since then, Greenland has purchased another 25% of the project venture, and now they have owned 95%, and Forest City owns 5%. On Block 1129, the construction fence, that green wall that was on Dean Street, that has come down. Dean Street has been repaved. Dean Street has been reopened, and so the work there has been completed. On the Barclays, one of the concerns that had come out from the community was the Oculus that would come on all times of night related to projects. Barclays, we want to commend them on fixing the problem. They've gotten new software so that the project Oculus comes on when it's supposed to come on and goes off when it's supposed to go off. They've also changed their protocols to ensure that if something does occur, they can fix it immediately or as quickly as possible. Good news, the LIRR and the West Portal has opened. That work has been completed. And so, in the double slip switch, all that work has been completed on the West Portal. There are 2 tracks that still remain to be laid on the south side of the rail yard, but the rail yard, in essence, is completed. In terms of what this board looked like last time we got together, Marika Williams was a board member who represented the City Council. She is now the Assistant Secretary for Housing here with the Governor's Office. Gibb Laconia, as we said, now represents the New York State Assembly. Linda Reardon resigned. She had told us early last year that she was going to complete her term due to her professional responsibility. She did resign. We have a pending appointment from the City Council to replace Marika. The City Council member has spoken to us. We are just awaiting the letter from the Speaker to appoint that person. There are currently 4 vacancies, one from the Mayor of the City of New York, the other are 3 from the Governor. We are waiting for our 3 to be vetted and those appointments to be made. The current project status, and although we've not met in 2018 that much, I do want to highlight some very important aspects of what has occurred. The upside and the downside of not meeting, the downside is we did not meet, and the reason it did not have that great of effect had more to do with the fact that we were not going vertical at the time. Most of the work that was being completed was in the rail yard, and most of that work was the East Portal at this point. And so the upside is we're ready to go forward and start going vertical, and so that's what I want to talk about today. Work that's being done now. I told you all I'm rusty. I can't find my notes. There we go. Since we last met also, there have been 6 quality of life meetings in 2018, 2 quality of life meetings in 2019 for a total of 8 meetings, which means that we have continually been meeting with the community and being engaged, addressing the many concerns related to noise and other concerns. I think it's been very helpful to be able to look at pieces of the project that normally would not get as much attention due to construction, so this has been helpful. In terms of what other concerns have been raised, the Long Island Railroad construction, the East Portal work, and the new LIRR facilities in the track. If you go stand on 6th Avenue Bridge, you'll notice a building to the south of the project. That building is offices, locker rooms, and those types of facilities for the LIRR. I always like to say, if you take a good look and think about what's going to be under these buildings in the future, you're literally going to have a small town under there with the number of employees and the number of workers there. The neighborhood cleanliness has been an issue with rats and other types of things, and so that's something we've been able to really concentrate on and work with the city and work with the developer on. Project development schedule going forward, what has been discussed and what we'll go into greater detail is B12, B13, B15. Development rights have been sold to 2 new developers, which I'll discuss, and those projects will go forward. And then the mayor's office and neighborhood support team program was also put into place, something that we worked on as well. I already discussed the Barclays piece with you. In terms of our current project status, where am I going? I'm introducing Scott. At this point, I'm introducing Scott, who will talk to you about the B12, B13, and B15, and the new partnerships that they've entered into, and then we'll go from there. But before we do that, Madam Chair, do we want to take any comments from the public regarding this portion of the President's report?
Sure. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public regarding the President's report? Yeah. Okay.
So as I introduce Scott, as I said, there have been 2 new partners for them. They have brought on TF Cornerstone, who brought into the project and will be developing B12 and B13 on Dean Street. The Brodsky organization will develop B15 on Dean Street. The important aspect of this is, 1, the project will continue going forward and move quicker. 2, I want to be very clear with the directors. We're very happy and we're very supportive of these 2 new developers joining in on the project and moving the project forward. ESD plans to hold responsible Greenland for all of the commitments that have been made through the Memorandum of Environmental Commitments, also other commitments on the GPP, also commitments related to the affordable housing and the goals and the deadlines that have been set. When Greenland came to us, Scott came to us and asked us about this opportunity, we clearly understood the need to go forward and to go forward in a very responsible way. The same types of commitments and guarantees that we required of Forest City, that we required of Greenland in terms of completion guarantees, we sought from TF Cornerstone and we sought from Brodsky. And the responsibility is still being held, the feet to the fire, the responsibility is being held on Greenland, which makes logical sense to us, and Greenland has agreed to that, and so we're looking forward to the commitments going forward and the work getting completed, and I believe Scott will be able to address all of that with you. As relates to Site 5 in terms of PC's Richards and Modell's, that has not gone forward. They're still in negotiations. The court case still is pending, and so there's really nothing to report there. And one other thing that the board has asked about was greater community engagement when we get to that point of having a program on Site 5. Also, as we prepare to look at modifying the GPP, how do we have a greater community engagement? And that's something we're still committed to doing.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Solish from Greenland. I'm always rusty, so please bear with me. But I too want to give an update on the project, especially since it's been a little bit of time, give a little bit more color onto what's been happening over the last year of the site, and then talk about what the next steps are of the project. So again, go through some of the current infrastructure work, completed projects, and then folks from TF Cornerstone and the Brodsky organization are here, and to introduce you to them, give an update on housing. There's been a request from the directors for an updated project map, so share that with you. An update on B15, and then also we have our architects here from Perkins Eastern that can walk you through the design presentation of the B4 project, which we showed at a quality of life meeting in October, I want to say. I don't remember the exact date. So just some of the completed infrastructure that's happened over the last year. You can see what we call the Long Island Railroad access ramp, that large concrete ramp outlined in red. That takes Long Island Railroad staff and vehicles from 6th Avenue into the permanent yard, and they will use that going forward to get their employees and equipment vehicles into the site. Obviously not for trains, for passenger vehicles.
What's the approximate date of this photo?
Yesterday.
Okay.
And that's going to remain, that's a permanent.
That's permanent, yes. Then you can see the Long Island Railroad substation. Again, that's a new power facility that was built as part of the permanent yard upgrades. That's in place and operational. The yard was running off a temporary power supply for close to a decade, and we were able to remove that temporary power. The railroad moved that to another yard facility, and they're now running off this permanent power that was built.
This isn't about the substance of your presentation here, but while this slide is on the screen, I wanted to draw the director's attention to that long line of cars you see parked on the sidewalk there. I believe those represent police officers parking their personal vehicles, officers assigned to the 78th Precinct. Parking in the neighborhood is a significant issue for the residents around this project, and so this picture really illustrates part of the scope of the problem, and I, again, wanted to just draw the director's attention to it.
So in addition to this, not shown here, and Marion alluded to it as well, is that the Long Island Railroad's new permanent office facility in the yard has been completed. They've been in temporary offices in the B4 site for also a substantial number of years, and they started moving their employees and personnel into the permanent facility as of last week. So we expect those temporary office trailers to be removed from the site hopefully this weekend. So another big milestone. Some of the current infrastructure work that we're ongoing now. The bump building demolitions, these are the two buildings on Atlantic Avenue in the B6 area between 6th Avenue and Carlton. So these two buildings are both to be demolished to make way for future vertical development. These are the only two pieces of land that are in the area that we call the vertical overbuild over the yard. This is what it looks like from the snow from a couple weeks ago. You can see that the buildings, one of the buildings is completely down. Because we're demolishing the buildings over the active rail yards, we spend several weeks taking it down by hand. So very time consuming but careful demolition to make sure that to protect the safety of the tracks and track workers and LIRR personnel working in the yard. So most of it comes down by hand, and then they bring a piece of mechanical equipment in to finish the job in a safe and responsible way. Then it gets the debris gets cleared, and this is what it looks like from yesterday. So you can see that the first building, the building on the east, is totally down, and most of the debris has been removed. The other building that's wrapped in scaffolding, all abatement work has been done, and that work will start sometime next week.
Was that at your own discretion, that technique, or were you mandated to handle demolition in that kind of
That was the
technical
way that the railroad wanted us to do it, so we worked with the railroad and the Department of Buildings to come up with a safe means and methods to execute that plan. This is the east portal. This is the last major piece of infrastructure work that's happening in the yard now. This is at the corner of Atlantic Avenue and Vanderbilt Avenue. This was the only way into the yard, and as Marion alluded to, last year we opened the west portal, which allowed us to reconstruct the east portal. And so this is the last critical piece of infrastructure that's happening. You can see another aerial shot. Those steel beams are reconstructing the tunnel and allowing us to rebuild the east portal. This work is expected to be completed this spring, hopefully sometime April or May. And then you can also see next to the park train on the right, you can see track 6. So track 6 and 7 have been installed, the last 2 tracks, and they're just waiting for the Long Island Railroad to come and install the third rail power. That would make those tracks operational, and we expect that work to happen sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Additionally, in the B4 site, so in the bottom of that picture, adjacent to Barclays Center, you can see those office trailers. So those are the ones that will be removed, hopefully this weekend. And then highlighted in red, that's where the drill track enclosure will go. The drill track is one of the tracks that allows the Long Island Railroad to bring trains into the yard and park them. So that was the original way to do it. So they drill them in, is the railroad terminology. So a small piece of the drill track will extend into the B4 site. We're building an enclosure around it for safety, and then the B4 project will be built on top of this. So this work is ongoing now and is expected to be completed in late April.
So that'll be all decked over?
It's like essentially a room within a room, and inside this room will be about 10 feet of track. And then you build a roof on top of it, and if the railroad ever needs to use it, there's a safe working environment for them. Just to recap, the completed vertical work, starting in your top left, that's 38 6th Avenue, otherwise known as B3. It's 303 apartments, 100% affordable. It's got the Project Medical Center that's now open. It's run by New York Presbyterian Methodist. It's also got some retail and 67 parking spaces. Building's about 99% leased. So very excited about that. Moving in a clockwise direction is 461 Dean Street, otherwise known as B2. That was the modular building that was overseen by Far City Ratner. That building is a 50% market, 50% affordable, 363 apartments. I have a chart later on that, so you don't have to write down the numbers. But that building is also fully leased. Continuing to move in a clockwise direction, 535 Carlton, 298 apartments, 100% affordable, fully leased. That's got the new Brooklyn Clay Pottery Studio, a woman-owned business. It's the largest pottery studio in, I think, the city now. Definitely Brooklyn, but in the city, where you can actually go and instead of just painting, you can use pottery wheels and make your own things. And pretty cool. And then finally, 550 Vanderbilt. It's 278 condominiums. So now, as Marion alluded to, last year we announced that we would be bringing in TF Cornerstone and the Brodsky Organization to work on 3 of the remaining sites. And so Jeremy Schell from TF Cornerstone and they're right next to me, and Thomas Brodsky from the Brodsky Organization are here just to introduce themselves and give a little bit of information about what they're working on and where things are going. So I'll turn it over to them for a quick introduction and then add some more information.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Schell, principal at TF Cornerstone. I couldn't be more excited about coming here and being part of the development at Atlantic Yards. It's still early days for us. We just recently closed. We're still in planning, B12, B13, but the expectation is, and what we're committed to doing, is at least 25% affordable housing at that project. We expect it will be about 800 apartments. And we're pushing forward pretty quickly in designing and trying to get this project moving as quickly as possible.
See up on the screen is it's an updated map showing the buildings in gray are the 4 that I just went through. The buildings in blue, B12 and B13, are the projects that Jeremy just mentioned, and Thomas will talk about the building in orange.
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer questions, but I can turn over to Thomas to his introduction.
I'll just jump forward.
Great.
Hi, I'm Thomas Brodsky of the Brodsky Organization. We are similarly excited to be part of the Atlantic Yards development. process here. We have signed on for B15. We closed right around the end of the year, and we are building this building in front of you, which will be 312 rental apartments, 94 of which are slated for affordable housing at middle income housing rentals, which is part of the 421A program. We are in addition building a 600-seat middle school below our building for the SCA, where we're going to be building the core and shell for them, and they're going to be doing the fit out. When we bought the building, there was already a foundation permit in place. We had to amend that to change our plans a little bit, but we are now starting our foundation work really as we speak. We have been spending the last week clearing the site and mobilizing, and next week we will begin drilling.
How many stories the building does the school take up?
It's the black part at the bottom,
the floor,
so it's
okay.
the first 5 or 6 floors there.
All right.
But, yes.
Could you just please repeat the number of total units?
312
Oh, I'm sorry.
rental apartments.
312 and 94 will be
30% of which will be affordable.
Okay.
And we expect it to be a 10-month foundation period, and then 24 months of construction to finish. Beyond that, so spring of
And the rest of it.
2022.
That's just by definition. Good idea. Mm. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Board, any other questions?
No, not right now.
Just to jump back, per the director's request, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew where we were in terms of housing, affordable housing delivery, and where we're going. The 4 projects I mentioned, which were they're listed up there, but on the Bs, sometimes what we refer to at Pacific Park, B11, B14, B2, and B3 represents about 1,242 units, 63% of which were affordable, and they're all fully occupied now. In terms of planned groundbreakings for 2019, as Thomas Brodsky just alluded to, B15 essentially started last week, really get going next week, and Greenland intends to commence construction of B4 sometime in April. So another about 1,200 total apartments, 30% of which will be affordable. And so just in terms of completed and in construction this year, will be at about 47% of the total units built will be affordable. And that's out of the 2,250 total units that need to be delivered at the site. And then as Jeremy alluded to, there'll be another groundbreaking sometime later this year or early next year of B12 and B13. So including those 2 sites as well, we'll be at about 60% overall, either completed or in construction of the 2,250 units.
Can I just make a request?
Sure.
In subsequent presentations of progress against goal, can this be displayed in another way, which is introducing the kind of time series when these units have been brought online against the ultimate 2025
Sure.
goal? I'd like to see the
Yes.
sequencing of that.
That would be helpful.
Sai, would you like us to just, obviously you can have access to this PowerPoint. Would you like us in the next coming weeks to ask them to do that? And
Please.
Okay.
That would
Yes.
be great.
So,
And
Scott, if we
and
can
we
update
could
the
get
chart.
this,
Yeah.
that would be helpful too.
Yes.
So
Obviously,
writing it.
Toby will distribute the PowerPoint after the meeting
Waiting
like
for
she
this.
does following every meeting.
And it also posted on the ESD website.
Right.
Oh.
And then Scott, she can, if you would go ahead and update the chart to reflect the time frame that Sai asked for, and then Toby can circulate that in the coming weeks.
That'd be really helpful.
And if I may, just to build on that a little bit, so it sounds like, and I've heard some of this presentation be.
Director Vaconi, can you use the microphone?
Sure.
Sorry.
So just building on that question, the buildings that we're talking about today were programmed somewhat differently when the plan in 2014 was released. I understand times change and subsidy programs change, so the development plans need to change. It looks like these buildings are being built with rental in order to qualify for the Affordable New York 421 A program, which has options for 25% or 30% affordable housing. I went back and took the liberty of looking at the 2014 schedule with respect to the building envelopes and numbers of units that were approved at that point. And what I found is if you project 25% affordable across the remaining rail yard buildings, which is originally where those units were supposed to go, you don't get to 2,250 units in the project. So what I'd also be interested is seeing what the plan is in terms of how you'll lay out those units, because doing it at 25% affordable will not get us there, will not get to 2,250 units in with the white buildings, the blue buildings, the orange building, the red building, and the gray buildings over the rail yards.
So in the 2014 plan, B12, B13, and B15 had 0% affordable housing. They were all planned as 100% market under the old 421A program, where you could build, for Pacific Park, you could build one market and one affordable in the right ratios and still qualify for benefits. So now all of these buildings do have affordable housing in them. In addition, Greenland Forest City is in design of the B5 project and is commencing design of B6 and B7. So we'll be coming back with additional information as that design progresses in terms of programming and affordability ratios.
So let me also say this on the state's position. Gib, you make a good point, and I think the point of giving us what your projections look like is helpful. But there are two realities I just want to emphasize to the directors. We are very serious about the two commitments that are also in that 2014 agreement. One, that they must maintain a 35% threshold of all units completed must be affordable. Currently, they're at 47%. Gib, you're right. If they do that 25, they will drop, and that's a concern.
It's not that they'll drop. They won't make 2,250.
I understand, but I don't think we need to worry about if they stay at 25%. Our goal is 2,250, and obviously they're going to have to increase their percentage of affordable in those buildings to reach that goal. We're not going to let them out of that agreement. So going forward with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, they won't be able to do 25%. They'll have to do something, is my point, and we're going to hold them to that commitment.
I think I'm sorry, I just want to make the point that this agency is charged with overseeing the public commitments of the project, and affordable housing is the key public commitment of this project. I understand that the developers have the right to transfer development rights to parcels within the project, but so far these transfers have been made and under the theory that later on will make up for a shortfall in affordable units with subsequent buildings. I would much prefer to see a schedule that explained how that was going to happen, at least in theory now, than waiting for the time when those projects are looking to be financed. And I'd like to ask, and if you like, I'll put it in the form of a motion for the board, that the board request the terms of the affordable housing commitments between Greenland Forest City Partners and the transferees, so we understand what's been agreed to specifically. And I'd also like to request that we see a breakdown, at least a proposed allocation of affordable units across the remaining buildings in the project within 90 days. And that's a motion.
First, let me say this, that Forest City Greenland's not required to give us a projection, and I'm not trying to put them in a position so that we can play gotcha. They have a responsibility, and we plan to hold them to the responsibility of meeting the 2,250 units. And, your request of them making a projection, I think, is helpful and useful. But at the end of the day, the commitment of meeting the goal that we set is non-negotiable on our end. And so I would like to, say that the agreement they have with TFC and the agreement they have with Brodsky, once they close and move forward, they are more than welcome to come and share that with the directors. But as it relates to them projecting out, if they have the projections, we will circulate them and share them with you, and we'll go from there.
A point of order, I'd just like to ask if there's a second to the motion.
I'll second it. I'd also like to just respond, Marion, quickly. I mean, can you say that will never be negotiable?
The 2250?
Yes.
At this point, I'm very clear, Howard's very clear, we're not negotiating that number down at all. I've been given very clear instructions that we're not negotiating that number at all.
And I might say,
Well, I was just going to say, why we're going to call, so if we can just call to make clarity around the motion, is the motion for us to try to get projections from the developers?
the motion has two parts. The first is that the Greenland and the transferees provide the terms of the affordable housing agreements for B12, B13, and B14 or B15 as soon as possible. The second part of the motion is that Greenland provide a projection that shows how it intends to meet the 2,250 unit goal or requirement under the project agreements.
Are there any
should respond to.
questions about that before I?
So one's already public, right?
Okay, so call the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, just a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Any? Okay.
So the
Motion carried.
the agreement of the closing between TF Cornerstone and Greenland and the agreement in Brodsky and Greenland, those are public documents already. So they should be.
It was an assignment of lease.
It's an assignment of the lease, and so that should be a public document at this point.
Yeah, it's the affordable housing terms that are of
It's-
specific interest.
We just wanted to clarify that it's been noted both at the quality of life meeting and also through Scott's presentation that each of the four sites moving forward would have at least a minimum of 25%. And as noted, actually B15 is expected to have 30% through the calculations of numbers that have been done. So like to note to your first point in that the agreement between the two entities as to the affordable housing numbers for those sites is already public. We have an understanding that 12, 13, and 15 will have at minimum 25%, and that's something that the developers are committed to. And right now, we see that B15 will have 30% of its units at affordable housing numbers.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put anybody on the defensive. I just believe that for the purpose of this agency and overseeing the commitment to this key public benefit, understanding the nature of these terms is important.
And I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation for the kind of.
Right,
They
but
want to read the
the
document.
terms.
They want to read the document.
Right?
Okay.
Contract.
Okay.
They want the contract.
So if there are no further comments, I'd like to introduce Michael Liu from Perkins Eastman, who is our architect for B4, to walk you through the design presentation that he gave to the quality of life meeting
You got it. Oh, I'm sorry.
in October for B4. So I'll turn it over to Michael, and then we'll be back to ESD.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us here. So I'll run you through the project and maybe a little bit about our firm. So Perkins Eastman is based in New York. We were founded in 1981. And within our firm, we have 14 different practice areas, of which interest on this project would be residential and mixed use. We're located in, I think, 15 different locations around the world, but New York is our main headquarters, and we have around 450 in New York. That's going to jump when all the interns come loose coming this spring, and we have about 950 worldwide. Just quickly, some residential projects. The Centria down by Rockefeller Center is an interesting project. It was across from, if you ever watched the Today Show, you can see it in the background when they have things on the plaza. We thought that was the main draw. Ends up that everyone who bought into this unit or this building really wanted to look at St. Patrick's the other way. 835 6th Avenue is a mixed building, mixed-use building. Has residential on top and a hotel down at the bottom. Flushing Commons was a EDC competition that we did a while back. Phase 1 is complete. The main import on this project was maintaining a 1 acre open space. 99 Hudson is in Jersey City. When it's completed, it would be the tallest residential building in New Jersey. It tops out, I think, at 950 feet, and there's almost 100 units in this building. And now to Pacific Park. Great project. We look at it as, Brooklyn's newest neighborhood, kind of at the crossroads of everything that's going on around down there. It's a great opportunity, and there are just so many people from our office actually live in the area, and they're all very interested in seeing how this turns out. We look at our site, the B4 site, which is to the east of the Barclays Center, as kind of the gateway when you come down Atlantic and you head east. The arena is such an imposing object there that we're looking to really demark really the entrance to Pacific Park. And you have all of the transportation right there, right down the street. So some of the goals that we're looking at here is, as I indicated, kind of providing a visual marker for the beginning of Pacific Park, trying to connect this new development with existing neighborhoods, and how do we enliven the streetscape. So when we think about the location of the building and the crossroads, we have really a triangular site. So we have really two commercial streets and one residential. So on the residential street on 6th Avenue is where we're locating the residential entrance, and the retail is all around on Atlantic and portions of 6th. So being kind of a transition building between, I guess, downtown Brooklyn and the more residential areas, it's a challenge to see how we actually connect those areas. And we look at scale, which is difficult because we're a high-rise, but we look at materials. So we go from brick, brownstone, masonry, to some larger buildings, and to finally some kind of the office buildings that you have in downtown Brooklyn. So when we look at the project, we're saying, how do we do this? So we kind of analogous to carving like a diamond. So we start with a kind of a granite mass, and the bottom of which is really the base of the building, which we call the rock. We have a more refined portion, which is the crystal, which faces south, and then we have the gem, which is the more polished kind of portion of the building, which faces downtown Brooklyn. With the ESD design guidelines, we are limited to a certain sweater envelope for the project, and that's on the left-hand side, with the base, the shoulder, and the tower. Over on the right-hand side is how we ended up using those guidelines to shape this building. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about, how you kind of carve or shape the building from a solid object. We end up with a rock, which is a masonry base at the bottom. We have the crystal, which is again on the south side, which has more articulation on the curtain wall, and the gem, which is kind of a polished, really kind of refined look. And this is with some of the materials placed on that, using those three pieces of the building. So for the public space, in the, I guess you call it not quite orange, but that shows where all the retail is, really extending from Barclays all the way down Atlantic. We turn 6th Avenue, and it continues and connects with really the retail that's down in B3. This is the view at the corner, 6th and Atlantic. You can see all the retail at the base. We have the masonry at the base above it with the punched openings. And we have the curtain wall at the top. If you look at the, actually, going back, if you look at the left side of our building, there's more articulation with the curtain wall. And we were looking there in kind of trying to look at the height that we have on the various brownstones and other buildings around. So where it's almost like every 3 floors we have a horizontal, and then we have the vertical mullions. And then when you get to the Atlantic side, which faces downtown Brooklyn and the city, it's more of a clean type of glass wall. And this, I think, we are pretty successful relative to an iconic building again as a marker entering Pacific Park from the west, downtown Brooklyn. This is the overall when it's totally built out. And, we are closest to downtown Brooklyn, so we're the tallest building there, and then the rest of the buildings kind of fall into the scale that was permitted within the plan.
Excuse me.
Any questions?
Board, directors?
Just one more time, can we just review the programming for this building?
Sure. It's a mix of approximately 860 residential apartments with commercial uses at the ground, at the lower floors.
Thanks.
And what's the percentage of
30%.
30% affordability?
Can I have the mic?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I think we have sorted out the points that were just raised by Gib. So we're going to need to do a revote on that. The motion must be for asking ESD to provide the projections, not the developer. The AYCDC's responsibility is through ESD, not through the developer. It's a technical issue, but I want to be clear on that. The second piece is, the second part of that motion on the projections was the second part. The first part was the agreement between Greenland and the two new partners. The agreement that ESD is currently in possession of is the assignment of the lease. That is the agreement that the partners have with Greenland. The master lease, master responsibility is between Greenland, Forest Cities, and ESD, and that is the agreement that states the responsibility of the affordable programming. So that's what the motion should address. Those are the things that we will provide based on what the motion that was offered. But we just needed to redo that, and I just want to be clear on those matters. I think I got that right? There we go. Okay?
So,
Okay.
so now that we have a new motion.
Well, I have a point of order, which is I think it may be helpful to break these into two separate motions.
I think so, too. That would be helpful.
So the first one is that ESD provides the projections,
Correct.
correct?
That's the projections for the remainder of the project's affordable housing unit.
I would assume the motion would be projection of the programming for the balance of the buildings. That's the same thing, but you would want to know the
Okay.
number of units and the number for each building. Yeah.
As long as we get to the number
Okay.
of affordable units in the building. I think
Direction for
that-
programming of balance of the buildings. Thank you. So can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
So moved. And a second? Second. Aside. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The second,
Can I just make
Sure.
a comment? I just want to be clear that in voting no against that motion, I in no way intend to send any message that I view the responsibility of this board to hold to assist ESD in holding the developer to the commitments that have been made is in any way diminished. I think it's a situation I'm satisfied with Marion's explanation that I think at this point in time, we can essentially trust all these professionals to do the simple arithmetic that you alluded to, which obviously is a valid point, and to take that arithmetic into account as they plan their future parts of the development project.
Okay. Thank you.
well, no, I think so. Okay, so just clarification for the second motion,
The first motion.
well, the first one we've done, so we're talking about the second.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we're saying the right language so that
I'm sorry.
I don't get in trouble next time. So can you just restate how you,
The second
Okay.
motion that Gib offered, I'm rephrasing, is that ESD provide the agreement between the Greenland and its new partners.
oh, I see,
Is
provide.
that correct, Gib?
Just only the affordable housing terms.
Well, the only aspect of this is the assignment of the lease is all that exists. So whatever's in the assignment of that lease is what you would be able to receive. The master agreement, the master lease is between Greenland for Our Cities and ESD.
Yeah,
So the agreement between the partners is going to be the assignment of that lease.
I want to make sure it's understood that, as you've explained, although development rights are transferable into the project agreements, development obligations are not.
Correct.
So if we move forward and continue to see transfers of rights, the obligations will remain with Greenland.
Correct.
And eventually, we could have a situation where the economic value of the project has been transferred out through sale of development rights, and all that remains is the obligations. And in that instance, I think understanding the nature of the commitment for the affordable units with the transferees is important to overseeing the eventual delivery of those units. And that's the basis of the request.
And that is the reason why that we have maintained the responsibility. We're maintaining Greenland still maintains the responsibility, and that ESD is holding them accountable for that. So, I don't know, Toby, do you want to?
Maybe I just wanted to restate, like, the commitment that TFC and Brodsky have made to the 3 project sites is public, in that each will have at minimum 25%, and currently it's projected that B15 will have 30%. Like, that is the agreement that the developers have made for those sites. And as Marion has stated, Greenland is still held responsible for, one, making sure that we keep the project at 35% of all units delivered at affordable, with a small 30% dip for when we continue with the platform work. But again, by 2025, at Atlantic Yards, we will have 2,250 units of affordable housing.
I just would like to make a point, as by way to explain my position on this. I've grown into a cynical individual, particularly as it relates to public-private partnerships. So my point is, I would like every opportunity to remind the broader community, defined as you would like, of this master commitment. Every opportunity, because I don't want it to be too late when things had to be negotiated. I'm too old
Fair.
for that.
Yeah.
I'm afraid
That's fair. Thank you, Si. That's fair.
I share some of Director Richardson's cynicism as well, but more importantly, I'm concerned that, from my understanding, the state would not have recourse to the transferees for delivery of the affordable housing commitment should Greenland not be able to deliver it. Does the state have the ability to demand performance on affordable housing?
The recourse is solely. Okay. So, yeah, we can have that conversation with you. But the gist of it is this: the recourse is not with the assignment. The partners receiving the assignment. The recourse is with Greenland.
I understand.
And we have a completion guarantee from both of the partners to get the work completed. And so that is how we became comfortable. But I believe the larger part of this conversation is far more legal and technical than the person running his mouth right now can go to, and would be more than happy to hold that conversation with you, Gib.
One clarification: is the master lease, that's a public document?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
And that's the motion that we're trying to get, is to get.
No, we're trying to get the assignment.
Well, we will give you the assignment.
May I ask a question?
So we don't need a motion.
Correct.
Of the President. So does the completion guarantee also speak to the delivery of affordable housing units, or just the completion of the building? Would the completion guarantee cover just the creation of X number of units that have been represented here, or X number of units, including the percentage of affordable?
The completion guarantee is per building.
Yes.
And so I guess your question is asking me, is the completion guarantee on the 2250 units?
No.
Or is it per building?
Is it for any percentage of affordable units in each of those buildings?
It is for the completion of that building based on the program that has been assigned to that building.
So the completion guarantee not only guarantees the building will be physically constructed, but it guarantees that a specific number of affordable units will be provided in it.
Correct.
Okay, then I think all we need to see is the completion guarantee.
That's fine.
Okay. So the motion.
We don't. Do we even need a motion for
We
that?
will provide to the directors.
It's a request.
We'll provide to the directors what those documents are. Okay.
That was really helpful.
Thank you, everyone.
That's right.
Is the presentation complete?
Yes, the presentation is complete.
Is your president's report complete? You're,
Oh, no, I want more.
no.
We're done.
Well, no, we're not done.
Always wanted
It's now, I'd like to, thank you, Marion.